Now it's time for another edition of What Would Jello Do? What happens when the government riots? Part 5. Well, there have been a few good things that have come out of this. Silver linings are kind of where you find them. Primary elections today. Ferguson, Missouri now has an African American mayor. First woman, too. And this is cool. She just said, "It's just my time to do right by the people." Asked what her election means for Ferguson, she responded one word: inclusion. Yeah. And that openly Nazi congressman from Iowa, Steve King, the one who wondered what was wrong with white supremacists and stuff like himself, lost his own primary this time. Not even his district could stand him anymore. Michael Jordan took an actual political stance. Besides, Republicans buy sneakers too. Remember that? He actually took a stand and admitted that this police violence targeting African Americans is real and it needs to stop. Tiger Woods even did a milder version of that. Yes, an actual political stand by Tiger Woods. Who would have thought? And there's reports like from the Barclays Center a couple days ago and then some others where finally, to calm things down and to find common grounds, even the police officers took a knee with the protesters as a show of solidarity for what the protesters were marching for. Although, weird trick in Philadelphia, the cops took knees, then those cops left, and another battalion of them charged in, and attacked the protesters. There's been some pretty good pranks, too. There's Chicago now, somebody who's doing the old Joker thing of interrupting broadcasts has found a way to hack the police radio system. Earlier, they were starting to get NWA fuck the police over and over and over again. And I just got a report within the last couple hours that Wesley Willis's Rock and Roll McDonald's has now taken over the Chicago police radio instead. Too bad the next song on that Greatest Hits Volume 1 CD isn't instead. That's Larry Nevers' Walter Budson about two cops who, for once, were convicted of murder for killing an innocent African-American man. For once, in Dallas, they put up an app where you were supposed to report suspicious activity to them of possible Antifa agents or vandals or protesters, and somebody flooded it with endless K-pop, the Korean pop, and they couldn't get rid of it all. Then one from Hong Kong, where apparently bricks mysteriously appeared during some of their protests. And what the protesters did was they took the bricks and lined them up very neatly arranged like a Japanese garden, but all over the streets, just enough in a way that it would disrupt any police car type vehicle who would try to drive over it. Those big military ones we have, or the Chinese mainland has, couldn't stop them. But the cars, yeah, they stopped them cold with their own bricks or somebody's bricks. And what do you know? Joe Biden is actually trying to be a president. 3 days in a row, the guy who thinks we should make him president is actually starting to act like a president, knowing that there's such a void there that he could just be showing people now how it can be if they just get rid of the gangster who stole the White House. And I have to say that some of his words, both on COVID-19 and on the murder of George Floyd, they were pretty well spoken. I mean, it was moving stuff. And he somehow managed, even in that, to point out that of the 100,000 plus COVID-19 deaths, and notice we haven't gotten a daily total in 2 or 3 days now, finally, well, over 40,000 of them were preventable. 40,000 in this country because Trump amok didn't act in time and in part just farmed it out to Jared, how can we make money off of this? You be in charge of stealing all the massive ventilators and moving them around, make people better. It'll be great. Yeah. He even promised, if elected, police accountability. Biden, police accountability. This is the guy who wrote some of the worst drug laws and sentencing laws and claimed John Ashcroft plagiarized the Patriot Act from him. So nice soundbite, old Joe, but for crying out loud, we can't wait for that dude. Remember when we thought Obama was going to bring Bush and Cheney to account for stealing not one but two elections, not to mention Gitmo, Abu Ghraib, and all the other war crimes they should still be charged with? He and Biden and Eric Holder didn't even lift a finger to go after Wall Street at all. So this one, once again, it's on us. Not just in the streets. I believe in attacking from many ways at once. In the streets, in the voting booth, and with our pocketbooks. Buy as few products from corporate predators as humanly possible. And, even if you have to look between the lines, oh, Blue Moon, no wonder it tastes so bad, at least for me. What kind of crap here is this? It's Coors. Easy boycott. Yeah. And especially when they make beer that tastes like that, on down the line. And as far as the voting booth goes, a lot of the vote fraud that these people are counting on for their permanent majority of racists and fascists and make the whole country like the Deep South in the 1950s or the 1850s, well, a lot of it is because they've just saying, oh, you have to have a certain kind of ID to vote. I keep saying, I don't care if it's the church or it's us or it's somebody, get the people who don't have those IDs or are going to be denied the right to vote because of the color of their skin or their age, too young, too old, get them registered and get the right IDs for them. And they can't get rid of us voters that way. And when voting, local elections are really, really important. Even if we get stuck with Trump amok, or even if we get stuck with Biden, but McConnell blocks everything for 4 years, well, there's who's mayor, which is very important when there's city protests. Who is the governor? Very important right now. Who is the attorney general, the city attorney, the school board? Fundamentalist Christians know how important school boards are, and they vote. Ballot initiatives, decriminalize cannabis, rent control, don't blow everybody's public money on a sports stadium that the billionaire owner of the team can afford to build themselves. Things like that. But another thing to hold mayors up to, people running for DA and whatnot, is no more arms race for the police departments. You don't need gigantic military assault vehicles straight back from Baghdad or Afghanistan to do war actions on your own people. Don't buy them. You don't need that heavy a SWAT team for most of what goes on. When I ran for mayor of San Francisco and I was just mouthing off that I was running without knowing thinking about what I was doing at a feeeew show in San Francisco, the second thing out of my mouth was police officers should be elected, an elective office, voted on by the districts and beats they patrol, and they would have to live there too in order to hold the public office. Lot less beatings and shootings if you have that going on. I still think that's a great idea and it should happen. And even now, all these tens of millions of dollars that cities save up to pay off police brutality lawsuits instead of train the cops better and spend the money that way, well, how many would get out of hand if the officers themselves were forced to pay the lawsuit money? At least part of it and stuff, enough of a chunk that it would really blow a hole in them and maybe make them think twice before shooting African Americans in the back for sport or strangling them to death or something like that. Statehood for Washington, D.C. Now it's in this weird way where it's kind of home rule yet federal rule where Trump legally can send in the army against Mayor Muriel Bowser's wishes anytime he wants. So far, she's stood up to him and he hasn't done it. But They have a delegate in Congress who's not allowed to vote on any of the bills. They can't introduce anything. Come on. This is like treating it like some kind of little, colony or something. Washington, D.C. should be treated as its own state. After all, this and many other things are why it's the protesters are the ones who are really calling for law and order. And this is what it looks like.